Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see people coming from outside the monastery on this auspicious evening. And so the original plan for the evening was our sort of traditional, our traditional way of shaping the evening would be to begin with chanting here, silent meditation, opportunity for the lay community to request 3 refuges and precepts, and then on a night like this, circumambulation of the Ajahn Chah monument, stupa in the field there, and then carry on like this, except looking at the skies and the changeability of weather on the British Isles. We're going to begin the evening with the circumambulation. So we'll begin by going out, by collecting. We have, I don't know whether there's enough for every single person, but there's flowers, incense, and candles for the monastic community, and then I understand there's another 15 or so bouquets of flowers for the lay community. So we'll collect those at the back there, and then go out in silence, and we'll circumambulate the stupa 3 times, and then carry on with the circumambulation first. We'll be doing some chanting out there, so if people who are not familiar with our chanting, I thought we'd chant in Pali scriptural language, the beginning of the evening puja in Pali, so that begins on page 18 in the dark brown volume. And so please feel free to bring your books out there. Because it's still daylight, you'll be able to read, which is helpful, obviously. And so once we do circumambulate, the monastic community will go up onto the upper tier around the stupa, and if our lay guests could remain down on the ground level, and for that portion of the circumambulation. Okay. So right now there's a few people out lighting candles, so as soon as they come back, we can get ourselves organized. And so the monastic community will go out this door and outside, and then pass through the back and collect flowers and things there, as we normally do. And then once you see that, if our lay guests, once you see that we're clearing the back area, please feel free to make your way there and just join in. Okay. And anybody joining us on the live stream, hopefully you've joined early enough to, that you hear what I'm saying, so you don't wonder where we all went. So, where did they all go? So, need a quick handwritten sign, we'll be back. So yeah, there's nothing that says that this candlelit or circumambulation has to happen at night. I haven't participated in many of these, for instance in Thailand, but at Ajahn Chah's monastery, Wat Pah Pong, for the annual circumambulation there, commemorating his death anniversary. I've only been there twice, so I can't say that it always happens in the daytime, but both of those times it happened. One time it was in the morning. This last time it was in the afternoon, early afternoon. Yeah, it's not dependent on doing this in the dark, and so it's just traditionally we tend to do it later in the evening. So. Yeah, we should actually. Well thought out. Yeah, thank you. Let me go get the. Yeah, I'd actually forgotten that before the circumambulation there's an announcement, and a traditional announcement, and so Ajahn Krunako's getting the book now, and it's line by line repeating after me. So. Thank you. So we'll begin with reciting the Namo Tassa 3 times. Andamayang Buddhasa Bhagavato Puba Bhaganamakarang Karoma Se Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. So repeating me line by line, repeating after me line by line. All of us take the Buddha as our refuge, and we delight in the Dhamma that he taught. He is an Arahant, fully enlightened by himself, and has compassion for all sentient beings. Being moved by compassion, he has set rolling the matchless wheel of the Dhamma. He proclaimed the 4 noble truths for the first time to the group of 5 bhikkhus at the deer park near Benares on the full moon of July. At that time, while this discourse was being given, the spotless, immaculate vision of the Dhamma arose in the Venerable Anya Kondanya thus: all that is subject to arising is subject to ceasing. After that, he asks for the going forth from the Blessed One, and became the first person in the world to receive the full acceptance as a bhikkhu disciple. At that time, the Sangha was born, and so the 3 jewels, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, were established in the world. All of us have now gathered here on this auspicious full moon day of August, it being the day when the Blessed One proclaimed the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. It being the day when the noble Sangha was born into the world, and the triple gem established. So we have gathered here at this time with these offerings and recollecting the virtues of the Buddha. We shall circumambulate the stupa 3 times. Although he passed into Nibbana long ago, the Buddha's guiding influence is still with us today. May our offerings be received and accepted for our long-lasting welfare and for the happiness of all future generations. Sadhu. Okay, so we can go prepare ourselves for the circumambulation. So. all a very different order this evening, but we'll chant the Dhamma Talks. So I've invited Tensangro to lead us. You're getting exercise this evening. Okay, so still people coming back in the hall, and if you join the YouTube live stream in the last half hour, because of weather, we're doing a very different order of the evening due to pending rain. So next we'll be chanting the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. I've invited Tensangro to lead us in that, so as soon as we all settled. So that appears in the golden-colored volume of the two chanting books, the light-colored volume, and it begins on page 2. And there's a solo introduction before we all join in. So. Before we begin the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, there's two dedications here. And so one is dedicate chanting for the well-being of Yukihiro. He's a friend of our Sangha, in particular a friend of Ajahn Kruniko, and myself, I also know him. He lives in Japan, and he's in hospital having cancer treatment. And so for his well-being, and then also dedicate chanting in memory of Mr. Keith Wakeham, who passed away peacefully during while he was asleep in hospital back on the 25th, so last week. So, and that's a note from Samanera Sampajano. So.
Sambotin sambujito tatagato bhathamang yang adese siddhammacakang anuttarang sammadewa pavatento loke apativatiyang yata kata ubho anta patipatti chamajimam Chatu suvariyasa chesu visutang jnanata sanang desitang dhammarajena samma sambodhikirtanang namena visutang sutang dhammacakkappavatthanang veya karanapatena Sanghitantang Bhanamase Evang me sutang Ekang samayang Bhagavan Bhadanasiyang Viharati Sipatane Vigadaye Tatrako Bhagavan Panchavagiye Bhikkhu Hamante Cittave me Bhikkhave Hanta Pabhajite Nanase Vitava Yojayang Kame Sukama Sukhalika Nuyogo Hino ฏิปทาตถากเตนะอภิสัมพุทธังจักขุการณีญาณการณีรูปสัมมายะอภิญญายะสัมโพธายะนิพพานายะสังวัตติกตมาจะสาภิกเวอาจิมาปฏิปทาตถากเตนะอภิสัมพุทธังจักขุการณีญาณการณีรูปสัมมายะอภิญญายะสัมโพธายะนิพพานายะสังวัฏติกายเมวะหาริโยอาตังกิโกมาโกเสยติดังสัมมาทิฏฐิสัมมาสังกัปปะสัมมาวาจาสัมมากัมมันโตสัมมาอาชีวะสัมมาวายามะสัมมาสติสัมมาสมาธิยังโกสัมปิกเวมาชิมาปฏิปทาตถากเตนะอภิสัมพุทธังจักขุการณีญาณการณีรูปสัมมายะอภิญญายะสัมโพธายะนิพพานายะสังวัฏติดังโกปนปิกเวทุกขังอริยสัจจังชาติปิทุกขาชราปิทุกขามรณะปิทุกขังโสกปริเทวทุกขโทมนัสสุปายาสาปิทุกขังอาปิเยหิสัมปโยโกทุกโกปิเยหิวิปโยโกทุกโกยัมปิจังนัลปฏิตัมปิทุกขังสังกิเตนะปัญจุปาทานังขันธาทุกขานิดังโกปนปิกเวทุกขสมุทัยโยอริยสัจจังญายังตัณหาโพโนภาวิกานันติราคะสหกตาตาตราวินันตินิเสยติตังกามตัณหาภวตัณหาวิภาวตัณหาอิดังโกปนปิกเวทุกขนิโรธอริยสัจจังโยตัสสะเยวตัณหายะหัสเสสวิราคะนิโรธจาโกปฏินิสาโกมุติยานาลโยหิรังโกปนปิกเวทุกขนิโรธกามินีปฏิปทาอริยสัจจังอายเมวะหาริโยอาตังกิโกมาโกเสยติดังสัมมาทิฏฐิสัมมาสังกัปปะสัมมาวาจาสัมมากัมมันโตสัมมาอาชีวะสัมมาวายามะสัมมาสติสัมมาสมาธิตังทุกขังอริยสัจจันติเมภิกขเวภูเปหนานุสุเทสุธัมเมสุจักขุอุทธัปปาติญาณังอุทธัปปาติปัญญาอุทธัปปาติวิจจังอุทธัปปาติ ธัมเมสุชาคุงพุทธปาติญาณังพุทธปาติปัญญาพุทธปาติวิจังพุทธปาติอาโลโกพุทธปาติทังโกปานิดังทุกขสมุทัยโยอริยสัจจังปะหาตาปันติเมภิกขเวปุเพหนานุสุเตสุธัมเมสุชาคุงพุทธปาติญาณังพุทธปาติปัญญาพุทธปาติวิจังพุทธปาติอาโลโกพุทธปาติทังโกปานิดังทุกขสมุทัยโยอริยสัจจังปะหินันติเมภิกขเวปุเปหนานุสุเตสุธัมเมสุชาคุงพุทธปาติญาณังพุทธปาติปัญญาพุทธปาติวิจังพุทธปาติอาโลโกพุทธปาติหิตังทุกขนิโรธอริยสัจจันติเมภิกขเวปุเพหนานุสุเตสุธัมเมสุชาคุงพุทธปาติญาณังพุทธปาติปัญญาพุทธปาติวิจังพุทธปาติอาโลโกพุทธปาติทังโกปานิดังทุกขนิโรธอริยสัจจังสัจจิกาตาปันติเมภิกขเวปุเพหนานุสุเตสุธัมเมสุชาคุงพุทธปาติญาณังพุทธปาติปัญญาพุทธปาติวิจังพุทธปาติอาโลโกพุทธปาติตังโกปานิดังทุกขนิโรธอริยสัจจังสัจจิกตันติเมภิกขเวปุเปหนานุสุเตสุธัมเมสุชาคุงพุทธปาติญาณังพุทธปาติปัญญาพุทธปาติวิจังพุทธปาติอาโลโกพุทธปาติหิตังทุกขนิโรธกามินีปฏิปทาอริยสัจจันติเมภิกขเวปุเพหนานุสุเตสุธัมเมสุชาคุงพุทธปาติญาณังพุทธปาติปัญญาพุทธปาติวิจังพุทธปาติอาโลโกพุทธปาติตังโกปานิดังทุกขนิโรธกามินีปฏิปทาอริยสัจจังภาเวทาปันติเมภิกขเวปุเปหนานุสุเตสุธัมเมสุชาคุงพุทธปาติญาณังพุทธปาติปัญญาพุทธปาติวิจังพุทธปาติอาโลโกพุทธปาติทังโกปานิดังทุกขนิโรธกามินีปฏิปทาอริยสัจจังภาวิทันติเมภิกขเวปุเพหนานุสุเตสุธัมเมสุชาคุงพุทธปาติญาณังพุทธปาติปัญญาพุทธปาติวิจังพุทธปาติอาโลโกพุทธปาติยาวกิวันจะเมภิกขเวหิเมสุจตุสุหริยสัจเจสุเอวันติปริวาตังตวาทัสสะการังยะถาภูตังญาณทัสสนังนาสุวิสุตังอโหสิเนวตาวาหังภิกขเวสเทวะเกโลเก สัมมาระเกสัพพะมะเกสัสมณพรหมนิยาปัจจายสเตวมนุสายอนุตตรังสัมมาสัมโพธิอภิสัมพุทโธปัจจัญญาสิงยโตจักโกเมปิกเวหิเมสุจตุสุอริยสัจเจสุเววันติปริวาตังตวาดัสสาการังยะถาภูตังญาณทัสสนังสุวิสุทธังอโหสิยตาหังเปกเวสเทวเกโลเกสัมมาระเกสัพพะมะเกสัสมณพรหมนิยามปัจจายสเทวมนุสายอนุตตรังสัมมาสัมโพธิอภิสัมพุทโธปัจจัญญาสิงญาณัญจปนเมตาสนังอุดปาติยกุปาเมวิมุตติยมันติมาจาตินาติดานิปุนาภาวติหิธัมโมจะภะคะวะอาตัมมนาปัญจวัคคียาภิกขุภะคะวะโตภาสิตังอภินันตุหิมัสมิงจะปนเวยังคารณสมิงปัญญมาเนหายสมโตคนตัญญาสวิรจังปิธรรมลังธรรมจักขุงอุดปาติยังกินชิสัมพุทยธรรมังสาพันตังนิโรธธรรมันติภวติเตจะภะคะวตาธัมมจักเกภูมาเทวาสาดมนุสาเวสุเอตังภะคะวตาภารณสียังวิสิปัตตเนมิกตายเยอนุตตรังธัมมจักกังภวติตังอาปฏิวาทิยังสมณเณรวาพระมเณรวาเทเวนะวามาเรนะวาพระมุนาวาเกนะจิวาโลกัสมินติภุมมานังเทวานังสาดังสุตวาจาตุมหาราชิกาเทวาสาดมนุสาเวสุจาตุมหาราชิกานังเทวานังสาดังสุตวาตาวติงสาเทวาสาดมนุสาเวสุตาวติงสานังเทวานังสาดังสุตวายามาเทวาสาดมนุสาเวสุยามานังเทวานังสาดังสุตวาตุสิตาเทวาสาดมนุสาเวสุตุสิตานังเทวานังสาดังสุตวานิมานารติเทวาสาดมนุสาเวสุนิมานารตินังเทวานังสาดังสุตวาปารณิมิตวสวาติเทวาสาดมนุสาเวสุปารณิมิตวสวาตินังเทวานังสาดังสุตวาพระมกายิกาเทวาสาดมนุสาเวสุเอตังภะคะวตาปาราณสียังนิสิปัตตเนมิกตายเยอนุตตรังธัมมจักกังภวติตังอาปฏิวาทิยังสมณเณรวาพระมเณรวาเทเวนะวาอาเรนะวาพระมุนาวาเกนะจิวาโลกัสมินติติหะเทนะคะเนนะเทนะโมหุเท ยาวะพระมโลกัสสะโดหาบุกาจิยยัญชตัสสะหาสิโลกตาตุสังกัมปิสัมปะกัมปิสัมปะเวทินาปมาโนจะโอลาโรงโหบาโสโลเกปาตุระโหสิหติกัมเมวะเทวานังเทวานุภาวัตหัตถโกภะคะวังพุทธานังพุทธานิสิอัญญาสิวัตโพคนตัญโยอัญญาสิวัตโพคนตัญโยติหิติหิตังหายสมโตคนตัญญาสอัญญาคนตัญโยทเววนามังอโหสิทิธัมมจักรภวัตนาสุตังนิติตัง
So this being, excuse me, a full moon, on the full moon and new moon, typically there's the opportunity for members of the lay community to, if they wish, to request the 3 refuges and 8 precepts. And so people who are staying here, lay people staying here, you're already living on this, and this is a way of reminding and making a determination, redetermining. And anybody coming this evening, you can determine these just for the rest of the evening until dawn. It's a practice that you can do. And so if you wish to participate in this, it's in the dark brown volume beginning on page 131. And traditionally it begins with bowing 3 times, and then as a group, just always as a group, this will be the Mayang, but it's the first form, because there's 3 different forms. So this is for a group from a monk, and then it'll follow on from there. And some of it is later on, a great deal of it is repeating after me, okay? So for those people wishing to participate, it's when you're ready, bow 3 times. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Dutiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Dutiyampi Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Tisarana gamanaṃ nittitaṃ. So now I'll do the Pali, you do the Pali, I'll do the English, you do the English. Panatipata Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature. Adinna dana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given. Brahmacharya veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from any intentional sexual activity. Musavada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from lying. Surameraya majapamadatana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs that lead to carelessness. Vikala bhojana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from eating at inappropriate times. Nachagita vadita visukadasana mala ganda vilepana dharana mandana vipusanatana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from entertainment, beautification, and adornment. Uchasayana mahasayana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from lying on a high or luxurious sleeping place. Imani atta sikkhapadani samadhiyami. Imani atta sikkhapadani silena sugatinyanti silena bhoga sampada silena nibbuttinyanti tasama silang visotaye.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammaṃ Sanghaṃ Namasami. The Sala Puja, and as you've been informed and probably already aware, this is the commemoration of the Buddha's first coherent teaching, and more than that, of a transmission of a teaching. In other words, he didn't just expound something, but somebody actually got it, and it changed them radically. So that's the fullness of this particular sutta that we chanted, and you can see it in the book of the Connected Discourses, the Satya Samyutta. You can look at it, you can review it, because there's a whole collection of them there, a whole gathering of suttas around this particular theme, which is essentially Four Noble Truths, 130 suttas there, all proclaiming this core teaching. Only one of them actually talks about the middle way. So it's an interesting presentation. And this one commemorates the first occasion this was expressed, and the reason why it became so crucial was because it had a transformative effect. So, as you might have noticed in this, the Buddha gives this teaching, which we might say the core that we recollect and remember is these called the Four Noble Truths. There's dukkha, trouble, stress, something's wrong, something's not fitting, stress is getting generated. It is generated, something that is generated, not innate, through some kind of pressure, or something's pushing, or something's twisting, or imbalanced, and a key. That's the second noble truth. Third noble truth, this situation can be resolved through letting go of the pressure, the torsion, the force that's generating this distortion, which the Buddha calls tanha, or thirst, craving. Not desire as such. It's a form of desire, but it's a kind of ignorant form of desire, because it's trying to arrive somewhere it can't get to. And what's this? These three forms, this particular desire that's unfitting. There is a desire that's fitting. It's called chanda, the motivation, sense of purpose that we have for practice, for realization, to help each other, so on. But where it goes wrong is this tanha, becomes craving, which is associated with wanting to hold on to something. An agreeable, pleasant experience to hold on to have, to store up, to be guaranteed one will get, repeatedly. And it projects itself onto sense data, sights, sounds, touches, perhaps even thoughts. People get high on intellectual pursuits and brilliant mathematical theories and craving for the final solution to the universe. When everything's known and so forth. I'm trying to hold on to some state of being that will be lasting and permanent. Some identity that gets formed out of that desire, that craving to be something stable and steady, formed, with a history and a future, definite, certain, reliable, going the right way, got it all cleared and sorted out. Holding on to that impression, that very powerful impression, that very powerful instinct, so powerful that we don't really get it, that we hold on to a ghost. Who is this person? Where do they live? Who is this ghost I call myself? Always moving, fluttering around, crashing into things, worrying about things, quarrelling with things. What is this? Owning things, saying it owns things, claiming it has rights, demanding the world be this way, claiming it has ownership of the earth, claiming it has the right to destroy any living creature that stands in its way. What is this thing? Trying to build that up into something permanent and lasting that's unquestioned and has rights and and the other form of craving to just not have to be here at all. Don't want to have to see anything, hear anything, touch anything, taste anything, don't want to have anything happen. I want to be like a invisible ghost. Somehow in some dissociated, abstract, non-entity. Which we may think, what's that? Well, talk to a heroin addict about that. Talk to people who wish to obliterate themselves, to not have to feel anything. They'll tell you what it's like. Talk to people who are depressed and suicidal. Just not to have to bear the pressures of existence. And we all get perhaps days like that, or moments like that, or scenarios like that, when just life seems too much. For me, I can't go on with this. Let me just... And times when it goes the other way. I really want to have more. Have things controlled, really colonize and own things. It's kind of switching around. And this is the pressure that gets created within existence. It's causing friction, unhappy, unresolved. Friction with others, frictions with one's body, frictions with one's feeling, frictions with one's history, frictions with the past, frictions with what other people have done, fear about what they might do. And the kind of formations that arise through that, the defense policies and the ownerships and the claiming security and the defending oneself and egotism that takes over in order to bolster this whole thing up that can't ever succeed. Who feels more insecure? Someone living in a monastery where the doors aren't locked, where the gate is open, where the Dhamma hall is freely available. Anybody can come in and sit here. Who feels more secure? A person like that, or a person who's got a gated dwelling, fences around it, security guards, sirens, alarms? Who feels more secure? Worrying about their bank account. And who feel more secure? People who own things, or people who don't own things? And they've shifted that ownership, that search, that hunger for something stable and comforting to something much more innate. They dwell endowed with virtue. They dwell uplifted by harmlessness. They dwell with the four treasures. They're rich with the four treasures. What are these four treasures? Metta, loving kindness, karuna, compassion, mudita, appreciation of the good, upeka, trusting, serenity, things will pass. Things will pass. This is for sure. Therefore, stay with it. Don't get flustered. Keep your heart steady. Things will pass. Endowed with these four treasures, enriched with these four treasures, a person walks freely in the world of conflict, pain, stress, competition, blame, and so on. And this is the transformation. Now, in a way, I've kind of moved on outside the range of the sutta, but of course, this is a seed discourse. From this one seed, a whole forest of teachings arises, different, all contained with this, because out of this seed, the Eightfold Path, all the Buddhist teachings arise from this one point. The transformation from craving and clinging, fixation, and bolstering up and holding on into something that's luminous, blessed, unrestricted. Through this one key point. This is with the complete no holds barred, dispassionate release from every kind of craving. That the Tathagata is liberated. And it says, unshakable is my deliverance. There's nothing to be shaken because there's nothing being held on to. How can you shake space? How can you destroy space? How can you lose space? And when this was Buddha presented this, as I said, there was a transmission. The transmission it's kind of presented very sort of, in a very kind of uncommentable way. But the first response to this is everything starts getting, there's a lot of energy starts getting released. You know? And these devas, these energy beings, these beings who are composed of different forms of subtle energy, start getting extremely frisky. And there are levels of them. Those that kind of dwell around the earth, they're earth spirits, they get pretty lively. And then the beings who oversee them get lively, and the beings who oversee them get even more lively. Eventually all the spirit world is just rocking and shimmering and trembling and glorifying and celebrating everything, you know. That's one response. The Buddha doesn't comment on that. Then one of the monks who's sitting there, this samana, this kind of gone forth person called Kondanyo, says, everything that arises, all arising, everything that arises is of the nature to cease. And the Buddha says, Kondanyo has realized. He has had the realization. The others did the celebrating, but he got the transmission, and he was very pleased that this teaching had worked. Yeah. It's actually, although the Pali doesn't easily translate into English because it doesn't quite say that. I've said that, but really because the English, trying to say it literally in English, you come up with something like all arising quality is ceasing quality. And that doesn't make sense. But in other words, it's not that there are things that change, but there's nothing but change. There's no thing there. What is being experienced is a continual flux, like mist, you could say. Because, and that's clearly what Kondanyo had experienced, having listened to this presentation, obviously tracking it. And again, it's very interesting because it said, in the midst of this discourse, while these words were being said, he had this realization. He didn't go away, develop the jhanas, and think about getting there. No. While this was being said, he was really clearly using his faculties, listening to words, and those words touching, going so penetrating into the structures of experience, saying, right in there, if there can be a release of that pressure, that hinge point of craving, and clearly he must have done that while it was being heard. This is a powerful and the realization experience. The arising quality is the ceasing quality. The feature of arising is the feature of ceasing. The two are sort of synonymous. You see a wave, and it's really that which is moving from one position to another position. It's not a separate entity. You see a wave is a wave. There's a trough coming in the opposite direction. Every wave is the beginning of the next trough. Every trough is the beginning of the next wave. There's no separation. You step back from that, you just see waving. Not some waves aren't separate entities, it's just waving. Now we may all have kind of considered impermanence of things, impermanence of life, mortality. A good number of poets have written about the impermanence of the flower, or the transience of youth, or the fleeting passions of love, or these kinds of wistful, melancholic stuff that they hadn't realised. Awakening through that, they just wrote some very touching verse and poignant. So it's not just that there are things that change, but there's nothing except that we experience, except shifting waves. So much so that to say anything definitely is something is already really rather a mistake. So things are, what is manifesting is a process that was also described in a particular way by the Buddha, a Buddha way that only the Buddha described reality, experience as. No other teacher ever taught this. And so it's straight, clearly, it wasn't something inherited from the tradition. There's no record of it anywhere else in Indian thought prior to the Buddha. So it clearly arose at that time for him. It's called the five aggregates. So what we experience really is a process whereby there's some kind of an object of some kind. If we're awake, if we're in this process of consciousness, there's some kind of something we're conscious of. There's some object. Sight, predominantly. An object has a certain shape to it. The shape's called rupa. So shape. Things have shapes. Things have forms. What a thing is really a form. Yeah? There's how we experience thinginess is through the experience of shape or form. So definitely there's a thing because there's a shape there. And, okay, well, let's have a look at that shape. How long does that shape stay regular without any movement? Maybe human bodies move around, trees move around. No, a mountain. Well, look at a mountain. What's a mountain look like at midnight? What does it look like when it's mist on it? What does it look like when it's covered with snow? What does it look like, at dawn? See, I mean, recently, last year I was in Switzerland, and Sangha would sit there in this particular room in the morning, and just as the sun was coming up, and suddenly the darkness shifted and changed, and then these mountains popped up. As far as we knew, they didn't exist until that light came. And the light came, and they gradually changed and shaped as the light hit them. And those mountains kept changing all day long. Until evening they disappeared. What mountains? Now you can say, well, that's just... but they're really there. Oh yeah? They're really, yeah, of course they're there. So you go out and drive your car, you can't see them anymore because you're in them. As you get closer, they change shape. What shape is a mountain? Depends on where you're seeing it from and what time of day. It's dependent upon consciousness, isn't it? So it has no existence apart from consciousness. And if you're conscious of something, that depends on whether you've got eyes, how good they are, whether you're a human being or a rat, whether it's dark or light. No matter how good your eyes are, you can't see in the pitch dark. So consciousness itself depends upon other factors to occur in order for these forms to materialize. Yeah? And how does consciousness work? We get some kind of felt impression, there's a perception, we recognize something is this, that occurs, and we generally start reacting to it. That's a great mountain. What a wonderful one of those. Get that thing out of here, it's untidy. Oh, there's a bee, hornet, kill it before it attacks me. Right? little creature. Kill it. Your reaction. Because you see something like a wasp, and you see this kind of creature that's going to kill you or hurt you. Is it? If you mess with it, it probably would. But would it be out of vicious violence, or just because it was frightened? Or just because you grabbed hold of it? Do you see what I mean? How we create plausible realities out of really what are a wedge, a conglomeration of conscious impressions of forms that trigger certain responses and reactions. And so that we all believe wasps are creatures that must be killed, or that's putting it crudely. But if you take that analysis across the human experience, we certainly carry those signals. Yeah, rats, kill it. And then, unfortunately, human beings, kill them. Bad, evil, wrong side of the fence, the other side of the border, wrong denomination, wrong religion, wrong colour, wrong nation, kill it. Defend yourself against it, threatening, hostile, nasty, kill it. Fear, aggression, so that I will be more comfortable in my reality. And what does that do? Lives in a world of fear and aggression and inequality. We create that through grasping, right? Where does poverty come from? When you look at dogs or bears, are there rich bears and poor bears? Nope. Do they have to get together and make sure they've got their bank account straight and equal? No. There are no such things as rich bears and poor bears. How come there's rich people and poor people? Are there rich gorillas and poor gorillas? No. Where does this rich-poor thing come from? Grasping. Greed, grasping, non-sharing. And then, poor people, they're ignorant, they're lazy, they're stupid, well, if you don't educate them, they get criminal. Well, of course, if you keep treating them like scum, they'll probably will get a bit violent. If you keep depriving them of what you're getting all the resources, they might get a bit jealous and feisty, I imagine. What created that? Did poor people create it, or did rich people create it? I think rich people created it. Because nobody says, "Oh, I'd like to be poor, please." They say, "Oh, I want to be rich." That's what created poor people. Right? And that becomes so normal, so understood, so innately patterned into our social structure. Craving, grasping, mine. I don't care about you. It's because you're separate. You're that form over there. Really interesting, because we assume this is kind of fundamental to humans, but it isn't actually. I remember reading some accounts of anthropologists visiting tribal peoples. And one of their sayings was, if somebody comes to our village who's impoverished, it's a disgrace because we're not looking after him. Not, he's useless or lazy. We have to give him things. We have to. Otherwise it's unspeakable that we should not give. If somebody's in need, we've got to give them something. And this anthropologist says, so what would happen if you didn't give him anything. Oh no, this guy can't believe it, how you could not give. He tries to think what would happen if you didn't give, because it was so inconceivable. He goes, well, you'd die alone under a tree, isolated. Your spirit would not be welcomed into the cosmos. It's that bad. There's such a sense of, shared belonging, shared quality. You recognise, somebody's had an accident, they're not so well, we've got to look after them. Somebody's missed something or lost something, you better give them something. And all the grasping is something we've kind of learned, picked up, because of the kind of society, and has touched something that's certainly potential in all of us, and structure something whereby it's constantly, you can have one of these, if you get one of these you'll be alright, you get one of these you'll be a good person, you buy one of these you'll get this, one of those you'll be alright in the future, buy an insurance policy when you're in the future, make sure you've got your bank account so in the future you'll be permanent happiness, guaranteed, this way, just round the corner. Permanent happiness, just round the corner. Run faster, so you run faster. Permanent happiness, just round the corner. Work harder, you work harder. Just round the corner, permanent happiness. Keep running. So that permanent happiness stuff. Grasping at these constructions, you see. I mean, so this kind of these rather abstract notions like perception, consciousness, form, reactions, responses, what's all this? That's that's the underpinning of this whole, creation, a structured reality in which I am separate from everything else, therefore I live in a state of anxiety and need. And that's called grasping. Dukkha, in a nutshell. Trouble. I am trouble, I'm in trouble, and I create trouble. I create trouble, this thing creates trouble for me, it creates trouble for you, it creates trouble for other creatures. And it's all, so breaking that, releasing that, just recognizing what a pitfall it is, how we sleepwalk into it instinctively because of these presentations of these form, consciousness, perceptions, feelings and responses that we don't really examine. They close into a fixed grip. No, it's not saying there shouldn't be any, it's not the problem with form. It's just the way that the consciousness works, You can't stop that. But you can know this is just form. We imagine that something form has a three-dimensional solid reality, but you sure? What's that? If you look very straight, with no assumptions, no expectations, what you see is shapes changing. And the rest of it, we fill in details. And by and large it sort of works, sort of. But it's amazing how many times you really get it wrong when you see another human and you think you've got them. You know what she's at. You know he's one of those. And you can't stand the way he is because he's like that. And how solid these things get. And you carry him around, and even you sit around and you're still trying to undo it, and 5 years later it's still sitting in you, and you're still wrangling over it. And 15 years later it's still sitting in there, and you're still chewing over it. That person, what they did and shouldn't have done, they're going to got stuck in your heart, and you're still hanging on and fighting with them. There's nobody there at all. And you're still fighting with them. You know? And you think that is like on the verge of insanity, if you ask me, and yet how normal is that? Because we so take these perceptions and impressions to be solid realities. And you won't find one. You won't find one. And, you know, says to me we're just in some state of, I don't know anything. What do? No, not really. That realization that everything is just virtual, wavering, shifting, changing, means certainty. You can't hold on to all that and try to squeeze it into something solid. It doesn't mean you have to live in a state of continual confusion. No. Develop morality. Whoever it is, whatever it is, big or small, fair or foul, weird or wonderful, let me not harm it. Let me quell that reaction of abusiveness. Not just not killing it, but not despising it. Not claiming having rights over it, not dominating it. You take that ethical sense and develop it, and it transforms. And because it's something, it's perhaps the only thing you can really feel you've got some say over. The rest of the world is constantly shimmering and shaking and quavering and not secure. But make this, because this is something you could live by. That's just one precept. And here we're kind of recommending a whole in-depth, in-depth behavioral transformation that's not esoteric, not technically complex, but transformative. And more than that, perhaps as a development from that, cultivate qualities of goodwill. Not letting aversion, jealousy take over your heart. Not letting fear and irritation take over your heart. Not getting giddy when success comes in, or thrown down when there's disappointment. Not letting these forces take over your heart. Your heart, look after your heart. It will strengthen and it will be a blessing for you. To something you can take refuge in and rely upon. Cultivating like this and developing like this. The Tathagata dwells with unrestricted citta, unrestricted by form, feeling, perception, reactions and responses and consciousness, unrestricted by birth, aging, death, unrestricted by defilement, unrestricted by dukkha, trouble, pain, suffering. These may arise, the heart is not restricted, shoved down, oppressed, reacted to it. There's a freedom in this very situation through non-grasping. Now, of course, it's all very, I think we get the general picture, but how does it, this grasping seems to be such an innate kind of mechanism that just clamps, like a fear mechanism or a temptation. I want to have one of those, that's really nice. You know, I really love it. I deserve one of those. You know, or that thing is really getting in the way. Push it away, you know, that person, that kind of quality. It definitely takes some work. But based upon that realization, how solid is anything? Isn't it all just stuff changing and being firmed up by one's passion, being firmed up by one's fear, being firmed up by one's anxiety, being firmed up by one's craving? That's what makes it so solid. And maybe I could take responsibility for that, rather than I'm in some situation that traps me. I'm stuck with people I can't stand. Or maybe I've got to do the shifting. Rather than shift the world, I'm going to shift this. Okay? So, through what? Through recognizing what's those energies that get generated, that firm up the sense of trap and dukkha, are to be contemplated. Also, as these are just waves, these are just movements of emotion, these are just rushes of feeling. That's what they are, not denying they exist, they're that. And they don't belong to anybody else. They're not really generated by external forces. They're generated through what? We might say, well, I'm just a messed up person. I'm just a kind of aggressive person. I've got a lot of aggression because when I was this and that, and then okay. Well, let's go back to that here and now experience when we feel fear or being left out or I'm not getting enough. Who is that? Do you ever see that? Do you ever turn your attention back to that? Who that is? You probably just find a kind of a reflex twitch. Not a person at all, but a kind of vacillating movement. And through of suffering. Something stressing and hidden and called myself. This is to be penetrated. So we acknowledge our fears, anxieties, our ways we blame people or blame ourselves or grasp at things. Okay, well not okay, but let's put some restraint on acting on it. Really, what goes on in here? You know, what is that search for security, search for comfort, search for things to be okay? Where's it going to? It's going out into a world of ghosts, of virtual realities, of imagined possibilities, of idealistic judgments. The world should be this way, people should be this way, people should like this, she should be like that. Going out to a shoulds. Well, you know, create a whole list of shoulds if you like. If you've got the time to do it. We all should. Yeah, but what is this? And now, what is forming that experience, resisting it, feeling oppressed by it? Just contemplate those energies. Where are they coming from? Something shaky, something agitated. This is where we bring our awareness kindly, spaciously, dispassionate, It's with the dispassionate relinquishment of every form of craving. It's not snap out of it, pull yourself together, you idiot. It's not, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't be this way, you should be nicer and sweeter and kinder and more peaceful than you actually are. That's more of the same stuff. It's not creating another should-be ghost. It becomes a tyrant living in our heads. Useless. Can only complain. Let's get down to that source of where does this energy all start running out into these aggregates, into these khandhas, these 5 forms. Dispassionate. Just get curious about it. And it's this point at which there's a response from dispassion is cooling, easeful, non-violent, harmonizing. You're touching the sense when the passion ceases, harmony starts to arise. Just as when the night fades, the light comes up. Everything arises, is a ceasing. It's just a wave. Those strong habits, passions, fears, those fixed positions which seem so locked, those enemies that are stuck in our heads, are only held that way through a tension and a pressure of craving that needs to be understood and dispassionately made aware of. It's this now. The rising of dispassion is the quelling of passion. It's not get rid of passion, then you'll have dispassion. No, you have to be dispassionate around passion, and that's what drains that energy, and it gets spacious. You find the space opens up, and suddenly things are not so bad anymore. It's just that. What was all the fuss about? It's powerful transformative teaching because it takes the pressure off internally. You don't feel so tight and jittery and contracted and nervy and worried. It takes the pressure off externally. You become more gentle and spacious and easygoing and relaxed, and other people start to shift around you. It's a powerful transformative teaching. To let go. To realize where that begins, in acknowledging one's fear and one's ideals and one's craving for certainty and one's sense I should make things work. What are you talking about? I just really examine some of these assumptions that stick there without you really knowing them. You know? You know? And a sense of just curious. It's like these are just these dream figures, shadow dream figures, that born out of ignorance. I remember, sometimes being here and feeling one was sort of supervising a community. Which is nice idea. I think, God, everybody's always suffering, so much, people always getting it wrong and suffering and complaining and this, that, and fretting and this and getting... I was feeling a bit fed up with it all. And I remember kind of saying, why's so much dukkha here? And this, I think this nun said, Bhante, that's what we're here for. We're here to understand dukkha. Oh yeah. Right. We're not here to kind of have a happy, we're here to actually get our hands into this, and certainly there's going to be some struggling, and then it's got spacious. Okay, people struggle. People say things they shouldn't have said. Okay, in that struggling conflict, the unrealized being thrashes around. They just got to really, really, really be very loving, and very patient, and very equanimous. And just trust the power of that dispassion and willingness to be with the conflicted experience. We're Buddhists, we believe in suffering. It's our orientation. We're not kind of trying to shove it under some idealistic pink cushion and God will get rid of it. We're about to. Of course, monasteries we really want them to be peaceful and comfortable and everything okay, But it's quite unusual. It's as okay as our capacity to be spacious and open and clear and honest. That's when it gets good. The rest of it just comes and goes. It's the nature of the situations. I remember a few years back, I was visiting Amaravati, and this guy who I knew this fellow, and he obviously got psychological imbalance. He got a bit manic, and he started to get really agitated and start clamouring for this, that, and the other, and get angry, and people get upset with him, and he'd get even more angry, and he was going to really build up a head of steam. And he was in the Amaravati Sala. He'd obviously gone off, lost it. He was kind of railing about this shouldn't be this way, and people were freaking out, and somebody said, "Look, this is totally inappropriate behaviour. You shouldn't be doing this. This is a monastery." Of course, that didn't do any good. And then people were actually starting to run out the doors and run away, and this guy was kind of doing his thing. And I thought, "Oh dear," So I went and I just came up to him and said, "Tony, look, you're really getting yourself upset, mate. Let's go for a little walk." We walked around the sala. I ended up holding his hand, walking him round. And he's going railing and ranting. I said, "Tony, you're getting yourself in a state, And I put my arm around his shoulder, just told him to, it's all right. And he sank onto the floor, curled up in a heap, and fell asleep. It was just that sense you just got to kind of meet people without trying to meet them rather than trying to change them. The change will happen because our system seeks balance, and sometimes we just lose it. And getting pressure on that doesn't help it to return to balance. What helps it is just some goodwill and spaciousness and sensitivity. This is what you learn. Well, you learn it often the hard way. You can't control things. You can't make everything go your way. You can't stop chaos coming in through the door. It's just, you've got to meet it. And really what makes a monastery and a community strong and vibrant, not just as an outward form, but in themselves, is our individual and collective ability to meet things and stay steady and spacious and recognize this is going to change. Me flapping my arms around and getting upset about it isn't going to do anybody any good. And that's the culture. You see? That's the underlying strength of our culture and our willingness to meet suffering and not go into grasping, craving strategies to stop it happening. And the sense of just the harmlessness and the respect. Transformative. It's such a beautiful place because this place has had no killing. When we had lots of rabbits here, and said, "Oh, you got to control your vermin." Of course, rabbits are vermin. Poor little rabbit didn't realise it was vermin. He just wanted something to eat. They got called vermin and shot. Because the farmer wants all his cabbages. He's not going to share with some rabbits, so they're vermin. It's your duty to shoot them, and we're supposed to shoot these creatures. So he said, what we do, we'll build a fence around our property to keep all our rabbits inside the property, so we don't have to shoot them. Okay, so we did that. Rabbits run around. First of all, there's thousands of rabbits. You could hardly see the grass for rabbits. You go down, look at that south, there's this kind of carpet of grey fur. There's so many of them. Oh my goodness, it's really going to get out. And then eventually nature came in, and I guess the foxes and the cats and the dogs and the rabbit population went up, and they gradually levelled. Now we just see a few hopping around. We don't know killing. Did not kill. They worked. Nature works it out. And the wall out there, when we were building this hall, we didn't destroy anything, any life for this hall. There was no trees here. We didn't cut any trees down for the hall. We had some of these oak trees had fallen over, and people gave them to us. And these other ones we coppiced, the chestnut. There was one only thing that got harmed. There was a bat hiding up in the roof of the old building. It used to live here, and this bat was. So the monks were tearing it down. They found this bat fell out of the roof, and he'd broken his wings. So all work stopped. Everybody stopped work. They phoned up the local bat officer, came running around his bat. Got his cotton wool under it. Got escorted out of the monastery and taken to a bat hospital, and fed moths. So I think that's pretty cool. The monastery was that concerned for a whole building project. You stop everything for the sake of one bat. Yeah, that's what counts. That's what we're here for. And the bees were nesting in the wall, and when we had to take down the wall to build the cloister, just to move the stone around. They are, we just knock the wall. No, you don't knock the wall down because it's got bees in it. So somebody volunteered, get the bee suit on, come out in the middle of the night when the bees were asleep, and gradually take all the bees out somewhere else. And that's what they did. They moved all the bees in the night time so the bees wouldn't be disturbed. And these are bees. They're precious. They give us... They pollinate things. You just can't kill bees. They pollinate the world, So you could look after them. Inconvenient, uncomfortable, slow things down, but we're a monastery. That's what we do. We don't run those other programs. The most important thing is to not grasp, dominate, control, and push other creatures around just to fit our wishes. Live in harmony. And you cultivate that perception, that sanya. You do it to a bee, you do it to a bat, you do it to awkward, uncomfortable human beings, and it becomes such a standard that you live in that domain and you feel glad. You feel glad. So this is all in the Buddhist understanding. This understanding of respect, that things are what they are because of the way we relate to them. If you relate to something as a pest, it becomes a pest. If you relate to it as another creature, it's another creature. As much right to be here as me. That transforms, right? So, relationship. So crucial. And to liberate oneself. from these fixed positions and strategies. This understanding in Buddhist culture, this precedes meditation. And whatever meditation is just a deepening into that domain. Called jhana, you absorb into that quality of deep impermanence and deep relationship to the experience of being here. The energies, the sensations, the thoughts, the feelings, just respect, don't mess, don't tangle, don't grip. And you deepen into that. So the realizations, the fruitions of those themes of virtue and goodwill and respect deepens into the very tissues of your body, and you feel very, very glad and free. And this is why we present these teachings, and why they're kind of simple and yet they're extremely pointed. And you've got to take and look where the pointer is going to, just like Kundanya did. He didn't just repeat what the Buddha said. He got the point and turned it. This is what he's pointing at. Let's keep our eyes on that. And great gladness will arise, harmony arise in the world around us. Offer this for your reflection.
So we have our vigil continues, and just before midnight we'll do chant, have a closing reflection, chant one of the reflections before doing the final homage, close at midnight. So those of us who are staying here, if we could all be back in the hall by 11:30, so that the last half hour is a half hour of relative stillness. So before that, as we are coming and going from the call into and from the hall, really be attentive to how we move about, keep a sense of quietude and stillness. Okay, and we can close the live stream now, so we can